The desperate call. The crystalline halls of the Galactic Unity Council had never echoed with such desperation. Ambassador Lyrian of the Zaphiran Republic stood before the assembled delegates, her normally shimmering blue skin now pale with terror. Her people were known throughout the galaxy for their peaceful nature and incredible artistic abilities, creating sculptures that could make even the most hardened warrior weep with their beauty. Today, beauty meant nothing. Today, only survival mattered. Honored delegates, Lyrian began, her melodic voice cracking with emotion. I come before you not as an ambassador of art and culture, but as the voice of a dying civilization. The Karvak horde has broken through our outer defenses. They show no mercy to civilians, no regard for our cultural treasures, no interest in negotiation. The massive viewing screen behind her flickered to life, showing scenes that made several delegates gasp in horror. Zaphiran cities burned while savage warriors in crude armor slaughtered fleeing civilians. The Karvak were a nomadic species that had evolved from pack hunters, and they treated conquest like a hunt where the prey was never meant to survive. Counselor Vex of the Harmony Collective, a gentle giant whose species had solved conflicts through meditation for over 1,000 years, spoke first. Surely there must be some way to negotiate with them. Every species has something they desire beyond destruction. Lyrian's laugh was bitter and broken. We tried negotiation, Counselor. We offered them our finest artworks, our advanced healing technologies, even tribute from our treasury. Do you know what Warlord Scarek said? Her voice dropped to a whisper. He said art is weakness, healing is for prey, and tribute is what you take from the dead. The chamber fell into stunned silence. The Karvak horde had been a distant threat for decades, confined to the galaxy's outer rim where they preyed on primitive civilizations. No one had imagined they would organize into a force capable of threatening core worlds. General Korax of the militant vanguard, whose people were considered the galaxy's primary military force, stood slowly. His forearms gestured at tactical displays showing fleet positions. The vanguard is already engaged with the Shadow Fleet in the Andromeda Corridor. We cannot withdraw our forces without leaving 3 systems defenseless. The Karvak have timed this perfectly. One by one, other military powers reported similar problems. The Iron Consortium was rebuilding after internal conflicts. The Star Guardians were dealing with a plague that had grounded their biological ships. The Psi Warriors were in deep meditation cycle and would not emerge for months. As the reports continued, panic began to set in. The galaxy's major powers were all occupied, and the peaceful species that made up most of the Council had no military capability to speak of. They had evolved beyond warfare, trusting others to protect them. Lyrian watched the growing despair and felt her people's fate being sealed. In 3 days, the Karvak would reach Zephyr Prime, her homeworld. 5 billion souls would die because the galaxy had grown soft and comfortable. That's when Junior Archivist Kelta spoke up from her small workstation. The young researcher rarely spoke in council sessions, but something in the database had caught her attention. Honored delegates, Kelta called out, her voice barely carrying across the vast chamber. I may have found something. There's a species listed in our defense archives with significant military capability. General Korax turned his massive frame toward her. Impossible. We know every military power in the galaxy. Who did you find? Kelta's tentacles worked nervously at her console. They're called humans, from a planet designated as Earth. According to the files, they made first contact 57 years ago, but there's very little interaction since then. The name drew blank stares from most delegates. A few remembered vague reports of some new species that had established a few trading posts, but nothing significant. What does the file say about their military? General Korax demanded. Kelta hesitated, reading deeper into the archives. The initial contact reports described them as friendly and curious. They established peaceful relations and seemed primarily interested in trade and cultural exchange. But sir, there are some older entries here from the first scouts who discovered them. Read them, Ambassador Lyrian said desperately. Any hope was better than none. Kelta's voice grew steadier as she read. Warning. Species evolved on Class 5 Deathworld. Extreme atmospheric pressure variations, violent weather systems, and predators that would be classified as weapons of mass destruction on civilized worlds. Dominant species shows remarkable adaptability and aggression. Recommend caution in all interactions. The chamber stirred with interest. Deathworlds were rare, and species that evolved on them were typically either incredibly dangerous or incredibly tough. Sometimes both. What else? General Corax pressed. They apparently fought something called world wars on their home planet, conflicts that involved their entire species. The scouts observed weapons testing that could crack continental plates and atmospheric manipulation that could alter their planet's climate. Now the chamber was buzzing with conversation. World wars were a concept that most peaceful species couldn't even comprehend. The idea of an entire planet fighting itself was horrifying and fascinating. Where are they now? Ambassador Lyrian asked, hope flickering in her chest for the first time in days. According to the files, they've established a presence in several systems, but they keep to themselves mostly. They have embassies in major trade hubs, but their main territory is marked as restricted access. I can send them our distress beacon. General Corax studied the sparse data available. Their home system is only 4 hyperspace jumps from the Karvak Advance. If they have any military capability at all, they could respond quickly. The debate was brief but intense. Some delegates worried about bringing an unknown military force into their space. Others pointed out that any help was better than extinction. In the end, desperation won. Send the beacon, Ambassador Lyrian ordered. Tell them everything. The Karvak atrocities, our civilian casualties, our complete inability to defend ourselves. If they have any honor at all, they'll help. As the distress signal shot across space toward the Sol system, none of the assembled aliens understood what they had just done. They had sent a cry for help to a species that had spent the last 57 years carefully hiding what they really were. Deep beneath the Colorado Rockies, in a facility that appeared on no civilian maps, Admiral Sarah Chen felt the alert vibrate through her neural implant. As the commanding officer of the Human Defense Initiative, she had been waiting for this moment for decades. The HFY had been established after humanity's first contact with the galaxy. While diplomats and traders had made friendly contact with alien species, military analysts had run different calculations. They had seen the vast distances between species, the lack of unified government, and the potential for conflicts that could span star systems. Humanity had learned from history. They would never again be caught unprepared. The command center hummed to life as Chen's staff responded to the alert. The massive screen showed tactical displays of human space, defensive positions that the galaxy had never suspected existed, and fleet formations that had been training in secret for over half a century. Status report, Chen ordered as she took her position at the Central Command Station. Commander Jackson, her tactical officer, displayed the alien distress signal. We've received an emergency beacon from something called the Galactic Unity Council. They're reporting a species called the Karvak Horde is committing genocide against peaceful civilizations. Chen read the message carefully, her expression growing harder with each detail. The images attached showed horrors that reminded her of humanity's darkest historical moments: civilian massacres, cultural destruction, and warfare conducted with the deliberate intention of causing maximum suffering. Analysis of the threat, she asked. Lieutenant Rodriguez pulled up intelligence files that human reconnaissance had been quietly gathering for decades. The Karvak are a nomadic warrior culture. Approximately 4 billion individuals spread across 1,000 ships. Their technology is crude but effective, focused entirely on conquest and destruction. They've consumed 17 minor civilizations in the past 50 years. And the species asking for help. The Zaphirians are a peaceful, artistic culture. No military to speak of. Population of 5 billion, mostly concentrated on their home world. According to our projections, they'll be extinct within a week if nothing intervenes. Chen looked around the command center at the faces of her staff. These were people who had dedicated their lives to protecting humanity and its interests. They had trained for decades for a war they hoped would never come. But this wasn't about human interests. This was about innocent people dying while those with the power to help stood by and watched. Recommendations? Chen asked. Commander Jackson spoke first. The Karvik fleet is spread across multiple systems, conducting simultaneous attacks. They're overextended and vulnerable to concentrated assault. Our third fleet could eliminate them in days. Political considerations. Chen turned to her intelligence chief. Colonel Martinez pulled up files on galactic politics. The aliens think we're harmless traders and explorers. They have no idea about our real capabilities. If we respond, we'll reveal everything we've kept hidden. And if we don't respond, millions of innocent people die, and we prove that we're no better than the monsters we spent decades preparing to fight. The debate was shorter than it might have been in a civilian government. These were military officers who had sworn oaths to protect innocent life wherever they found it. Alert the Third Fleet, Admiral Chen ordered. Full combat deployment. Operation Guardian Angel is now active. Across human space, ships that had waited in hidden berths for decades began emerging into real space. The Third Fleet was humanity's premier deep space formation, designed specifically for operations far from Earth. 47 vessels built with technology that pushed the boundaries of physics, crewed by personnel who had trained their entire lives for this moment. The flagship was the HSS Retribution, a 5-kilometer dreadnought that carried enough firepower to sterilize continents. Its crew of 12,000 included the most elite soldiers, pilots, and specialists humanity had ever produced. But the ships were only part of the response. In military bases across human territory, the Orbital Assault Corps began loading their equipment. These weren't peacekeeping forces or police units. These were warriors trained from childhood in the most effective methods of warfare ever developed on Earth. Captain Marcus Rivera stood before his battalion in the Retribution's massive deployment bay. He was a veteran of humanity's colonial conflicts, a man who had fought pirates, rebels, and worse in the dark corners of human space. His Marines were volunteers from every nation on Earth, united by their dedication to protecting the innocent. "Listen up," Rivera announced, his voice carrying clearly through the bay. "We've got a situation. An alien empire is using genocide as a weapon of war against civilians who can't defend themselves. The Galactic Council has asked for our help." The Marines listened in perfect silence. They understood what this meant. For 57 years, humanity had maintained the illusion that they were peaceful explorers. Today, that illusion would die. "The aliens think we're harmless," Rivera continued. "They think Earth is just another civilized world that's evolved beyond warfare. They're about to learn why our home is classified as a death world. They're about to discover what humans do to bullies who prey on the weak." A roar went up from the assembled soldiers. These were warriors who had spent their entire lives training for this moment. They would finally have the chance to do what they did best: protect the innocent by destroying their enemies. As the Third Fleet began its hyperspace jump toward the war zone, Admiral Chen sent one final message to the Galactic Unity Council. "HFY Third Fleet responding to your distress call. Maintain defensive positions. Terra sends its regards." The aliens who had sent the desperate plea for help had no idea what they had unleashed. They had asked for assistance from what they thought was a primitive species that might have some basic military capability. Instead, they had awakened the most dangerous predators the galaxy had ever seen. When Deathworlder's answer, Warlord Scarex stood on the bridge of his flagship Bone Crusher, watching the beautiful blue world of Zaphiran grow larger on his tactical display. His scared hide bore the marks of 100 battles, and his collection of trophy skulls from conquered species decorated his command throne. To him, war was art, and conquest was the highest form of expression. The Karvak had evolved from pack hunters on a world where only the strongest survived. Their society was built on simple principles. Take what you can, kill what you can't, and show no mercy to the weak. They had been raiding the galaxy's edge for centuries, but now they were ready for something bigger. Status report, Scarex growled, his voice carrying the threatening rumble that made lesser species flee in terror. His tactical officer, Grimjaw, checked the fleet displays. 17 outer colonies have fallen completely. The prey species are fleeing toward their home world, exactly as planned. Our hunting packs report excellent sport, though the Zaphirians died too easily. Scarex laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the bridge. The Zaphirians had been pathetically easy to conquer. Their cities fell without resistance, their people died without fighting back, and their art made excellent kindling for victory fires. And the other prey species? Any attempt at rescue? Nothing significant. The militant vanguard sent a token force, but we destroyed them easily. The galaxy grows soft and weak, just as our ancestors predicted. The warlord nodded with satisfaction. The plan was working perfectly. Hit hard, move fast, and be gone before any organized response could form. Soon the Karvak would control enough territory to challenge even the core worlds. That's when the proximity alarms began screaming. "What is that noise?" Scarex demanded, his combat instincts immediately alert. Grimjaw's claws worked frantically at his instruments. Hyperspace signatures, warlord, multiple contacts dropping out of FTL at the system's edge. The tactical display updated, showing new contacts appearing in space. Scarex studied the readings with growing confusion. The ships were massive, far larger than anything the peaceful species typically built, but their configuration was completely unknown. Identification: unknown class, but the energy signatures match a species called humans. According to our database, they're primitive traders from a frontier world. Scarex's laughter filled the bridge again. More prey had arrived to witness Karvak's superiority. It would make the victory even sweeter. How many ships? Grimjaw's confidence faltered as more contacts appeared on the display. "Sir, they're still arriving. Current count is 47 vessels, but these aren't the small trader ships we expected. These are warships, warlord. Big ones." The laughter died in Scarex's throat. 47 warships was more than many systems possessed for their entire defense, and they were all focused on his fleet. Impossible. Humans are weaklings. Our scouts reported they have no significant military. Before anyone could respond, the communication station activated. A voice began speaking in perfect Karvak, with an accent that somehow made the language sound even more threatening. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Human Defense Initiative 3rd Fleet. You have committed acts of genocide against civilian populations. You will cease all hostile operations immediately and withdraw from this system, or face the consequences." Scarex's rage exploded at the audacity. Some primitive mammal dared to threaten the mighty Karvak. He would add human skulls to his collection and use their ships for target practice. "Foolish humans," he broadcast back. "You know nothing of war. The Karvak horde has conquered 1,000 worlds and destroyed 100 species. You will join them in death." The human voice replied with cold precision. "You have 30 seconds to comply. This is your only warning." Scarex roared with laughter and fury. "All ships, open fire. Show these mammals the power of the Karvak." The Bone Crusher and its escort fleet turned their weapons on the human formation. Plasma cannons that could melt asteroids fired at maximum power. Kinetic projectiles designed to punch through battleship armor launched in deadly volleys. Energy beams that had shattered the defenses of dozens of worlds struck the human fleet with devastating force, and absolutely nothing happened. The human shields absorbed the Karvak weapons fire without even fluctuating. Energy that should have crippled warships simply disappeared into barrier systems that operated on principles the Karvak couldn't understand. Projectiles that should have punched through armor were caught and neutralized by defensive fields. "What kind of shields are those?" Grimjaw whispered in shock. Before anyone could answer, the human fleet returned fire. Scarex had seen weapons before. He had used the finest military technology available in this part of the galaxy. But what struck his fleet was beyond anything he had imagined possible. The beams that lanced out from the human ships didn't just destroy their targets. They unmade them. The escort destroyer Throat River simply ceased to exist. One moment a kilometer-long warship, the next an expanding cloud of component atoms. No explosion, no debris, just complete molecular disintegration. Evasive maneuvers. Scarek screamed, but it was too late. The human weapons tracked their targets with impossible precision. Ship after ship of the Karvik fleet died in seconds, their crews vaporized before they could even comprehend what was happening. The weapons were so advanced that they bypassed every defense the Karvak had developed over centuries of warfare. Within minutes, 31 Karvak ships had been reduced to their basic elements. The survivors, including the Bone Crusher, fled in panic as human ships appeared throughout the system, with casual displays of superior technology. But Scarex's nightmare was just beginning. As his damaged fleet limped away from the human warships, he watched something that chilled even his warrior's heart. The humans were saving the very people he had been trying to kill. Massive transport ships appeared over the Zaphiran colonies, disgorging smaller craft that raced toward the dying worlds below. But these weren't just rescue ships. They were assault dropships carrying soldiers in powered armor. Captain Marcus Rivera's boots hit Zaphiran soil with a metallic clang that echoed through the ruined city around him. His Marines spread out in perfect formation, their advanced armor allowing them to operate in the toxic environment the Karvak had created. Overlord to all units, Rivera spoke into his comm system. Primary objective is civilian rescue. Secondary objective is elimination of hostile forces. Rules of engagement are weapons-free. Anything that shoots at civilians or us gets turned into spare parts. The Marines moved through the devastated city with deadly efficiency. Their armor sensors could detect life signs through rubble, track enemy positions through walls, and coordinate attacks with orbital support. These weren't the peaceful explorers the galaxy knew about. These were apex predators evolved on a world where everything was trying to kill them. Rivera's squad encountered their first Karvak patrol near what had been a children's art gallery. The alien warriors were amusing themselves by destroying delicate sculptures, while Zaphiran civilians cowered in nearby ruins. The firefight lasted exactly 12 seconds. Human weapons technology had advanced far beyond what the galaxy suspected. Their rifles fired projectiles at significant fractions of the speed of light, guided by AI systems that could track multiple targets simultaneously. Their armor could withstand direct hits from weapons that would flatten buildings. But it wasn't just their equipment that made humans deadly, it was their nature. They had evolved on a world where predators hunted in packs, where weather could kill without warning, and where survival required constant vigilance and ruthless efficiency. The Karvak, for all their reputation as fierce warriors, had never encountered anything like human soldiers. They fought like animals, brutal and instinctive. Humans fought like demons, cold, calculating, and absolutely merciless when protecting the innocent. Word of the slaughter spread quickly through the Karvak ground forces. Their patrols began disappearing without trace. Positions that should have been impregnable were overrun in minutes. Warriors who had never known fear began to understand what terror felt like. Back in orbit, Warlord Scarex watched his conquest crumble. The humans weren't just defeating his forces, they were systematically dismantling everything the Karvak had accomplished. Their medical ships were reversing biological weapons, their engineers were rebuilding destroyed infrastructure, and their soldiers were hunting down every Karvak warrior who had committed atrocities. Warlord Grimjaw reported, his voice shaking with fear. We're receiving reports from all occupied worlds. The humans are everywhere. They're not just rescuing civilians, they're hunting our forces with precision we've never seen. Scarek studied the tactical displays with growing horror. Human ships had appeared at every site of Karvak aggression, each one bringing soldiers who fought with impossible skill and equipment that rendered Karvak weapons obsolete. How many humans are there? He demanded. Intelligence estimates suggest this is only one of their fleets, Warlord. There may be many more. The implications hit Scarex like a physical blow. If this was just one human fleet, and it was dismantling his entire horde with casual ease, what would happen if more arrived? What kind of species had he awakened? His questions were answered when a human dropship landed directly on the Bone Crusher's hull. Somehow, impossibly, human soldiers had boarded his flagship in the middle of space. Alarms screamed through the ship as armored figures moved through the corridors with deadly purpose. Captain Rivera's voice echoed through the ship's communication system. "Attention Karvak forces, you are surrounded and outgunned. Surrender now, and you will be treated according to galactic law. Continue fighting, and you will be eliminated." Scarex grabbed his weapons and prepared for his final battle. He was a Karvak warrior, and he would die fighting. But as he stepped into the corridor, he came face to face with something that made his warrior's spirit falter. The human soldier was smaller than most Karvak, but the armor made him look like a mechanical demon. Sensors glowed like predators' eyes, and weapons were integrated seamlessly into the suit's design. But it was the human's movements that truly terrified Scarex. Fluid, controlled, and absolutely confident. "Warlord Scarex," Rivera said, his voice carrying through the armor's speakers. "You're under arrest for genocide and crimes against sentient species." Scarex roared and charged, his massive claws extending for what should have been a killing blow. Rivera moved like liquid death, avoiding the attack and delivering a precisely calculated strike that shattered the warlord's armor and left him helpless on the deck. As Scarex lay defeated, his vision blurring from pain, he finally understood what his people had awakened. Humans weren't primitive traders or peaceful explorers. They were the apex predators of a world so dangerous that it had forged them into living weapons. The galaxy had made a terrible mistake in underestimating them. In the aftermath of the battle, the Galactic Unity Council struggled to comprehend what they had witnessed. The Human Defense Initiative had responded to their distress call with overwhelming force, eliminating a threat that had terrorized the galaxy for decades. Ambassador Lyrian stood before the council chambers once again, but this time her message was one of gratitude mixed with awe. The humans had not only saved her people, but had rebuilt their devastated worlds with technology that seemed almost magical. "The humans refuse any payment or territorial concessions," she reported. "They say they were simply doing what any civilized species should do when faced with genocide." The implications were staggering. A species existed that possessed military technology decades ahead of anything the galaxy had seen, but used it only to protect the innocent. They had hidden their true nature for over 50 years, content to be seen as harmless traders while secretly preparing to defend others. Admiral Chen's final report to the Council was simple and direct. The Human Defense Initiative exists to protect peaceful species from those who would destroy them. We hope this intervention will serve as a warning to others who might consider similar actions. But privately, the galaxy's leaders understood the real message. Humanity had revealed itself as the galaxy's new apex predator, but unlike the Karvak, they used their power to protect rather than conquer. The age of easy conquest was over. The Deathworlders had answered the call, and they were here to stay.